What if they don't let us back in?
We'll figure it out. We always do.
Are we going to be okay?
We have rights here. Ma'am, I need you to step back.
This is private property.
The knock came just before dawn, soft at first, like someone unsure they belonged on the other side of the door. Aisha Carter lay awake on the couch, her youngest son's breathing warm against her arm, the cold light from the street lamp cutting the living room in half. She had already packed their clothes into black trash bags. She just hadn't believed she'd need them yet. The knock came again, louder, final. Through the thin door, she heard the scrape of boots and the static hiss of a radio. Aisha's stomach tightened. Her phone buzzed in her hand. Unknown number. A voicemail notification she hadn't listened to. She opened the door. 2 uniformed officers stood beside the building manager. The manager didn't look at her. He stared at the clipboard like it could absolve him. "Ma'am," one officer said, voice flat, professional. "You need to vacate the premises immediately." Aisha swallowed. "We have until Friday," the court said. The manager finally spoke, not meeting her eyes. Orders changed. Behind her, her daughter whispered, "Mom, what's happening?" The officer shifted, impatient. "You can take what you can carry." Aisha felt something crack inside her. Not loud, not dramatic. Just quiet and irreversible. She looked at the manager, her voice barely holding together. "You knew my husband died. You knew I was trying." He exhaled, tired. "Yeah. But this isn't personal." The officer raised his hand. "Ma'am, step aside." And that's when Aisha realized the locks were already being changed. Aisha Carter knew something was wrong the moment the voicemail came through at 5:12 a.m. She didn't listen to it right away. She was already awake, lying on the couch because the bedroom mattress hurt her back, staring at the ceiling fan that clicked every time it turned. Her son Malik slept beside her, curled like he was afraid she might disappear. Her daughter Naomi was in the bedroom, school uniform folded on the chair even though school had been cancelled for the week due to heating issues. The voicemail icon blinked. She pressed play. "Miss Carter, this is Mr. Holloway from Property Management. Due to updated compliance requirements, your tenancy has been terminated effective immediately. Please be prepared to vacate by morning." Her chest tightened. Immediately. She sat up so fast Malik stirred. "Mom," he murmured. "It's okay," she said quickly, though it wasn't. "Go back to sleep." She replayed the message. 3 times. The words didn't change. "Effective immediately." She grabbed the lease from the drawer. The court notice from last week clearly stated she had until Friday. 3 more days. She had an appointment with a housing counselor. She had submitted proof of income. She had followed every rule they'd given her. Her phone buzzed again. Another message. This one was just a text. "Management will arrive with authorities at 7 a.m. Aisha's hands started shaking. By the time the knock came, she had packed what she could. Clothes in trash bags. Shoes in grocery sacks. Birth certificates folded into her purse. She left the couch, the TV, the framed photo of her husband in his army uniform. She opened the door. Mr. Holloway stood there, bald head shining under the hallway lights, clipboard in hand. 2 police officers flanked him, both white, both avoiding eye contact. "Miss Carter," Holloway said. "Morning." "You said Friday," Aisha replied. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. "The court said Friday." Holloway sighed like she was wasting his time. "Things change. That's not how the law works." One of the officers stepped forward. "Ma'am, we're here to enforce the eviction." Aisha stared at him. "You didn't even ask for paperwork." He looked uncomfortable. "We have authorization." "From who?" "The city. The landlord." The same system that had lost her husband's military death benefits paperwork 3 times. Holloway finally looked at her, really looked at her. "I told you, Aisha. This isn't personal." She laughed once, sharp and bitter. "It never is it?" Naomi appeared behind her, eyes wide. "Mom, are they taking our house?" Aisha swallowed. Go get your backpack, baby. One officer checked his watch. Ma'am, you need to step aside. Where are we supposed to go? Aisha asked. Holloway shifted. That's not our responsibility. Malik came out barefoot, clutching his toy car. Are we moving again? Aisha crouched in front of him. Just for a little while. Holloway gestured to the maintenance worker waiting behind him with a toolbox. We need access to the unit. Aisha straightened slowly. So you already changed the locks? Holloway didn't answer. The officers entered without another word. One stood in the living room. The other followed Holloway toward the back. This is illegal, Aisha said louder now. I have a court order. Ma'am, the officer replied, voice tight. I don't make the rules. Naomi's eyes filled with tears. Mom, please. Aisha felt the heat behind her eyes, the kind that meant if she blinked she wouldn't stop. You're kicking us out with no notice. Holloway finally spoke again, still not meeting her gaze. You missed payments. My husband died, Aisha said. I missed him. Silence filled the apartment. The officer cleared his throat. You can take what you can carry. Aisha looked around the room. The cracked wall. The second-hand couch. The cheap curtains she'd sewn herself. This is our home, she whispered. The maintenance worker unlocked the front door from the inside. The click sounded like a verdict. 10 minutes later they stood on the sidewalk. Trash bags at their feet. Naomi holding her school bag like it was a shield. Malik asking if they were camping. Aisha turned back. Holloway was already taping a notice to the door. She didn't cry. Not yet. She just stared at the building that had once felt permanent, and realized how quickly a life could be erased when the people in charge decided you didn't belong. The car smelled like plastic and old fries. Aisha sat in the driver's seat with the engine off, hands resting on the steering wheel as if she were still driving somewhere that mattered. Naomi was in the back, knees pulled to her chest, scrolling through her phone with no signal. Malik lay across the seat, using a trash bag of clothes as a pillow. Outside, the sky had turned gray. Morning traffic moved around them, people going to work, to school, to places that expected them. Aisha checked the time. 9:17 a.m. Mom, Naomi said softly. Are we going to Grandma's? Aisha swallowed. Grandma's apartment only allows one person, remember? Naomi nodded but didn't argue. She already knew. Aisha turned the radio on, just to break the silence. New City Housing Initiative promises support for vulnerable families. She turned it off. Her phone buzzed. Legal aid had finally texted back. All representatives are currently busy. Average wait time 2 hours. 2 hours felt like a lifetime when you had nowhere to sit. Okay, Aisha said, forcing energy into her voice. We're going to try the shelter on Jefferson. Malik sat up. The one with the bunk beds. Yeah. He smiled. I liked that one. Aisha didn't say anything. That shelter had turned them away last winter because Malik had a fever. She started the car. The shelter lobby was loud. Crying babies. TV playing cartoons with no sound. A security guard who looked bored and exhausted at the same time. Aisha stood in line for 40 minutes. When it was finally her turn, the woman behind the desk barely looked up. Name. Aisha Carter. 2 kids. The woman type. Frowned. We're full. Aisha felt the words hit her like cold water. Full. Yes, ma'am. Next availability is 3 days. I don't have 3 days, Aisha said quietly. The woman finally looked at her. Her eyes slid past Aisha to Naomi and Malik, then back to the screen. There's a wait list. How many people? 47. Aisha stared at her. Where are we supposed to go tonight? The woman shrugged. Try the west side. Aisha turned away, heart pounding. As she reached the door, she heard another voice. Excuse me. A white woman with 2 kids approached the desk. Clean coat. Fresh coffee in hand. We were told to come here by the hotline. The desk worker smiled. Of course. Let me check something. He typed again. Oh, we actually have one emergency space. Aisha froze. The woman was already being handed paperwork. Aisha didn't say anything. She just watched. The guard opened the side door for them. Naomi whispered, "Mom." Aisha forced a smile. "It's okay." But it wasn't. By noon they had tried 3 more shelters. Full, full, full. At the 4th one, the man at the desk said, "We prioritize families with employment." Aisha laughed, tired and sharp. "I have 2 jobs." He looked uncomfortable. "I mean current housing." She walked out before she said something she couldn't take back. They ate $8 burgers in the car. Malik spilled ketchup on his shirt. "I'm sorry," he said quickly. "It's okay," Aisha replied, wiping it with a napkin that barely worked. Naomi stared out the window. "My friends think I'm sick." Aisha felt guilt stab her chest. "We'll figure it out." Naomi finally looked at her. "How?" Aisha didn't answer. That night they parked near a gas station. The light stayed on all night, which made Aisha feel safer. Malik fell asleep first. Naomi didn't. "Mom," she whispered, "did we do something wrong?" Aisha closed her eyes. "No." "Then why did they take our house?" Aisha searched for words that wouldn't break her daughter. "Because sometimes the rules aren't fair." Naomi was quiet for a long time. "Is it because we're black?" Aisha felt her throat tighten. She wanted to say no. She wanted to protect her. But lying felt worse. "Sometimes," she said softly, "people make things harder for us." Naomi nodded like she already knew. Aisha stared out the windshield at the glowing gas prices. She thought about the manager's clipboard, the officer's watch, the woman at the shelter who found a bed only after seeing a different face. It wasn't one thing. It was everything. A system built to look neutral while quietly deciding who deserved help and who didn't. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was legal aid. "Caseworker will contact you tomorrow morning." Tomorrow felt far away. Aisha leaned back in the seat. Exhaustion finally winning. Outside, the city kept moving. Inside the car, a family tried to stay invisible so no one would ask them to leave again. The call came at 8:03 a.m. Aisha answered on the first ring. "Miss Carter," a man's voice said. "This is Daniel Reed from Chicago Legal Aid." "Yes," she said quickly. "Yes, I'm here." There was a pause, the kind filled with keyboard sounds and quiet reading. "I reviewed your file last night," Daniel said. "And I need to be honest with you. What happened to you looks very wrong." Aisha closed her eyes. "Wrong how?" "You had a valid court extension. Your landlord had no legal right to evict you early, especially with police assistance." Aisha's heart started pounding. "So it was illegal?" "Yes," Daniel said simply. "Very." Aisha let out a shaky breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "They said the orders changed." Daniel gave a short, humorless laugh. "They always say that." She sat up in the car. Naomi and Malik were still asleep. "They changed the locks," Aisha whispered. "They didn't even let us go back for everything." Daniel's voice softened. "That's called a self-help eviction. It's prohibited under Illinois law." Aisha stared at the steering wheel like it might disappear. "So what do? "We start building a case." They met at a small legal office downtown. The waiting room smelled like burnt coffee and old carpet. Posters on the walls read "Know Your Rights" in 3 languages. Daniel Reed was younger than Aisha expected. Mid-30s. Rolled up sleeves. Tired eyes that had seen too many stories like hers. He laid her documents across the table. "The landlord owns 12 properties," he said. 8 eviction complaints in the last year alone. Aisha frowned. "So he does this a lot?" Daniel nodded. "And almost all the tenants are black or Latino." Aisha felt something cold settle in her chest. Daniel pointed at one form. "This is the eviction notice they filed. But look at the date." Aisha leaned forward. "That's not the one I got." "Exactly. They submitted a different version to the city." So they lied. They altered records, Daniel corrected. Which is worse? Aisha's hands started shaking again. Why? Daniel didn't answer immediately. Because most people don't fight back, he said finally. And because the system rarely checks. Aisha thought of the clipboard. The officer's watch. The shelter desk. So what happens now? Daniel slid a small recorder across the table. You start documenting everything. Aisha hesitated. Isn't that dangerous? Daniel met her eyes. Silence is more dangerous. That afternoon, Aisha returned to the building. Not to go inside. Just to stand across the street and watch. The maintenance worker was there again. Another family stood on the sidewalk with bags. A man with gray hair argued with Holloway. A woman cried quietly into her phone. Aisha pressed record. Today is Tuesday, she whispered. I'm outside my old apartment. They're evicting another family. Holloway's voice carried across the street. Orders changed. The same words. Aisha felt anger rise in her throat. Not explosive. Focused. She wasn't alone anymore. That night, Daniel emailed her a list. Things to collect. All texts from landlord, voicemails. Photos of locks, police badge numbers. Shelter denial records. Aisha stared at the screen. It looked like a war checklist. Naomi watched from the bed. Mom, are we suing them? Aisha smiled faintly. I don't know yet. Naomi thought about it. Good. They deserve it. Malik raised his toy car. Can we get our couch back? Aisha laughed softly for the first time in days. Later, alone in the bathroom of a public library, Aisha listened to the voicemail again. Effective immediately. She realized something then. This wasn't just about her. It was about how easily her life had been erased with one message, one clipboard, one uniformed presence that pretended to be neutral. Daniel texted, "You're not the first, but you might be the one who changes it." Aisha stared at the words. She felt fear. But for the first time since the knock at the door, she also felt something else. Power. Aisha didn't plan for the video to go viral. She had only recorded it so Daniel could hear Holloway's voice again. So there would be proof. So the words wouldn't disappear the way everything else had. But the girl across the street had recorded too. A college student, maybe 20, phone held sideways, whispering, "This is messed up," as another family was pushed out onto the sidewalk. By morning the clip was everywhere. Chicago landlord accused of illegal evictions. Black families forced out despite court orders. Aisha's phone wouldn't stop vibrating. Naomi read the comments over her shoulder. "They're on your side," she said. Aisha scrolled slowly. "This is heartbreaking. Same thing happened to my mom. Why is this always legal when it's us? Then the others. Pay your rent. Stop playing victim. The law doesn't care about your feelings." Aisha put the phone down. The TV in the shelter common room switched to the news. A reporter stood in front of her old building. "This property, owned by Holloway Management, is now under investigation following allegations of unlawful evictions." Aisha felt her stomach twist. "That's our place," Malik said. Naomi whispered, "That's you." The reporter continued. "The landlord denies wrongdoing, stating all actions were within policy guidelines." Holloway appeared on screen. Same suit. Same clipboard. "This isn't about race," he said. "This is about contracts." Aisha felt heat rise in her chest. Daniel called 10 minutes later. "Congratulations," he said dryly. "Your case just became public." Aisha rubbed her temples. "I didn't want attention." Daniel's voice turned serious. "You wanted justice. Attention is how you get it." The city released a statement that afternoon. "We are reviewing the situation. At this time, no violations have been confirmed." No violations. Aisha stared at the words like they were written in another language. "They're protecting him," Naomi said. "They're protecting themselves," Daniel replied when Aisha read him the statement. By evening, protesters stood outside Holloway's office. Someone spray-painted homes, not profits on the sidewalk. Aisha watched from across the street. She didn't feel like a hero. She felt exposed. A woman approached her. "Are you the mom from the video?" Aisha hesitated. "Yes." The woman hugged her without asking. "My sister went through the same thing. Thank you for speaking up." Aisha didn't know what to say. She had never planned to speak for anyone. She had only wanted her house back. That night, a city official finally called. "Ms. Carter," a man said, smooth and careful. "We're concerned about your safety." Aisha laughed bitterly. "You weren't concerned when I was sleeping in my car." "We can offer temporary accommodation." Aisha leaned forward. "You mean now that it's embarrassing?" Silence again. "We'd like to resolve this quietly." Aisha's voice hardened. "No." She hung up. Naomi stared at her. That was powerful. Aisha shook her head. That was scary. Later, alone in the shelter bathroom, Aisha stared at her reflection. She didn't recognize herself. Not because she looked different, but because the world was suddenly looking at her. Daniel texted again. "Media wants an interview tomorrow." Choice. Aisha typed. "I'm tired." He replied. "So is the system. That's why it's fighting you." Aisha turned off her phone. She lay between her kids, listening to the noise of the shelter. For the first time, she understood something clearly. The city didn't help people like her because it cared. It helped when it was forced to. And now something had shifted. Not enough. Not yet. But enough that people in power were finally afraid of the truth. The courthouse smelled like disinfectant and old paper. Aisha sat on the wooden bench, hands clasped so tightly her knuckles hurt. Daniel sat beside her, flipping through a folder thick with documents. Naomi and Malik waited with a volunteer in the hallway because Daniel said they didn't need to hear this part. Across the room, Holloway sat with his lawyer. The lawyer was tall, gray-haired, and smiling. That bothered Aisha more than anything. The judge entered. Everyone stood. "This hearing concerns the eviction of Ms. Aisha Carter," the judge said. "Let's proceed." Holloway's lawyer spoke first. "Your Honor, my client acted fully within legal boundaries. Ms. Carter was delinquent on rent and failed to comply with updated tenancy requirements." Daniel stood slowly. "Ms. Carter had a court-approved extension," he said, "which was deliberately ignored." Holloway's lawyer smiled again. "Paperwork can be misunderstood." Daniel didn't smile back. "Or altered." The judge raised an eyebrow. "Explain." Daniel placed 2 documents on the table. "These notices have different dates and signatures. One was given to my client. The other was submitted to the city." The judge examined them. Holloway shifted in his seat. His lawyer cleared his throat. "Administrative error." Daniel leaned forward. 8 tenants. Same error. The courtroom went quiet. The judge looked at Holloway. "Mr. Holloway, did you instruct your staff to change the eviction timeline?" Holloway avoided Aisha's eyes. "I rely on my managers." "So you don't deny it happened?" Holloway hesitated. "No." Aisha felt something tighten in her chest. Not relief. Validation. The judge continued. "Ms. Carter, do you wish to speak?" Aisha stood slowly. Her voice shook at first. "I followed every rule. Asked for help. I told them my husband died. They didn't care." She looked at Holloway. "You told me it wasn't personal. But you did it anyway." Holloway finally looked at her. His eyes were tired. Annoyed. Not guilty. Holloway's lawyer stood again. "Your Honor, emotions aside, this case is being politicized. Social media has distorted the facts." Daniel interrupted. "Or revealed them." The judge sighed. "This court will delay final ruling pending further investigation into Holloway management." Aisha's heart dropped. Delay. Again. Outside, reporters waited. "Ms. Carter, do you feel justice was served today?" Aisha looked at the camera. "No," she said honestly. But at least they're listening. Holloway walked past her. He didn't say anything. He didn't have to. The system still belonged to him. The protests didn't start with Aisha. They started with someone spray painting "Stop Stealing Homes" on the courthouse steps. By the next morning there were tents outside City Hall. By the third day, news helicopters circled overhead like restless insects. Aisha stood at the edge of the crowd, holding Naomi's hand while Malik sat on Daniel's shoulders, waving a cardboard sign that said, "We just want a place to live." She still felt strange being there, like she was playing a role in someone else's movie. A woman with a megaphone shouted, "How many families have to suffer before the city acts?" The crowd answered with noise. Daniel leaned toward Aisha. "The housing department just released internal memos." Aisha frowned. "What kind of memos?" "Complaints about Holloway. Years old. Ignored." Aisha felt her stomach twist. "They knew." Daniel nodded. "They always know." A city official finally appeared on the steps. A polished man in a dark suit. "We take these allegations seriously," he said into the microphone. "An independent task force has been formed." The crowd booed. Aisha whispered, "That's it." Daniel replied quietly, "That's panic." Later that day, the mayor gave a press conference. Holloway Management's operating licenses are suspended pending investigation. Naomi gasped. They did it. Aisha didn't celebrate. She had learned not to trust announcements. 2 days later, Holloway was served with criminal charges. Fraud, coercion, civil rights violations. Aisha watched the news alone in the shelter common room. The reporter said, "If convicted, Holloway faces up to 5 years in prison." 5 years. For destroying dozens of lives. Aisha turned off the TV. Naomi hugged her. "We won." Aisha closed her eyes. "No," she said softly. "We survived." The city offered emergency housing. A small 2-bedroom apartment on the south side. It wasn't the old place. But it had locks they controlled. Real lease. Malik ran from room to room shouting, "We're rich." Aisha laughed and cried at the same time. Daniel visited that evening. "They're offering compensation too," he said. "Settlement." Aisha hesitated. "Should I take it?" Daniel looked around the empty apartment. "You deserve it. But don't let it be the ending." Aisha thought about the families still intense. The ones who hadn't gone viral. She shook her head. "I want more than money." Daniel smiled. "Then keep talking." Weeks later, the city council passed new housing oversight laws. More inspections. Public eviction records. Tenant advocates. The news called it the Carter policy. Aisha hated the name. She never wanted her pain to become legislation. But she understood something now. Systems only changed when someone refused to disappear quietly. She tucked her kids into real beds for the first time in weeks. Naomi whispered, "Are we safe now?" Aisha kissed her forehead. "Safer than before." Outside sirens wailed. The city hadn't become kind. But it had become visible. And for the first time that felt like power. The day Holloway was arrested, it rained. Not hard. Just enough to blur the city into gray streaks that looked like they were melting. Aisha watched the live footage on her phone in the kitchen while Malik built a tower out of cereal boxes and Naomi pretended not to stare. Holloway emerged from the courthouse in handcuffs. No clipboard. No confident posture. Just a man blinking against the cameras, suit wrinkled, eyes scanning for an exit that didn't exist. Aisha didn't feel joy. He felt quiet, like a room after a storm. Naomi broke the silence. "That's him." Aisha nodded. "Yeah." Malik looked confused. "Is he going to jail?" "Maybe," Aisha said. "But not because of us." Naomi frowned. "Then why?" Aisha searched for the right words. "Because he did it to a lot of people." Daniel called an hour later. "They froze his assets," he said. "The properties are being transferred to city oversight." Aisha leaned against the counter. "So the families can go back." Some of them, Daniel replied. If they want to. Aisha closed her eyes. Some places couldn't be returned. Only remembered. The building manager resigned 2 days later. He sent Aisha an email. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I was just following orders. Aisha read it twice. She didn't reply. She thought about the moment he looked at his clipboard instead of her face. Following orders had never been neutral. The settlement offer arrived in the mail. Check. More money than Aisha had ever seen at once. Naomi held it like it might vanish. We're rich for real now. Aisha smiled faintly. We're stable. Malik asked. Can we get a dog? Aisha laughed. Let's survive first. Daniel warned her. People will forget soon. News cycles move fast. Aisha nodded. I won't. She started volunteering at the shelter. Not as a symbol. Just as a woman who knew the forms. Who knew which offices never answered. Who knew how it felt to be told politely that you didn't exist. One night, a young mother sat beside her. They said I have to leave tomorrow, the woman whispered. Aisha took her hand. Not without a plan, she said. Months passed. Holloway's trial dragged on. But the city moved faster. Audits, reforms, new hotlines. The system didn't collapse. It adjusted, like it always did. But now it knew it was being watched. One evening, Aisha stood on her balcony. Naomi did homework inside. Malik played with sidewalk chalk. The city lights flickered on. Daniel texted. You changed things. Aisha typed back. We changed things. She looked at her hands. The same hands that packed trash bags. The same hands that signed court papers. The same hands that now held keys to a door no one could take without a fight. Justice hadn't come like a movie ending. No applause. No miracle. Just consequences. And the slow, fragile feeling of being allowed to stay. The new apartment still smelled like fresh paint. Not the kind that covered damage. The kind that meant no one had lived there long enough to leave ghosts behind. Aisha stood in the doorway for a long time before stepping inside. Keys warm in her palm like proof that the place was real. Naomi had already claimed the smaller bedroom, lining her books across the windowsill. Malik ran from room to room, counting light switches like they were treasure. Look, Mom, he shouted. This one works too. Aisha laughed softly. Let's hope they all do. The city called it permanent housing. Aisha called it fragile. Not because she expected it to be taken, but because she knew how easily permanent could become temporary if someone powerful decided so. That knowledge never left her. It lived in her bones now. 2 weeks later, Holloway was officially convicted. Fraud, illegal evictions, civil rights violations. The sentence: 4 years in prison. The news anchor called it historic. Aisha turned off the TV. She had stopped expecting closure from screens. Naomi asked, Do you feel better now? Aisha thought for a long time. I feel different. Different how? Like I can't unsee how things work. Naomi nodded. Me neither. Aisha returned to work at the grocery store. Customers recognized her sometimes. You're the eviction lady, one said kindly. Aisha smiled politely. She wasn't sure how she felt about being a headline instead of a person. Daniel stayed in touch. They met for coffee once a month. You could run for office, he joked. Aisha laughed. I don't trust the chairs. At the shelter the faces changed. Different mothers. Same fear. Aisha helped them fill out forms. Explained appeals. Taught them to record everything. Not because she believed every case would go viral, but because silence was the most dangerous part of the system. One night Malik asked, Are we poor? Aisha paused. No, she said carefully. We're just not protected. Malik thought about it. Are we protected now? Aisha hugged him. More than before. The city council invited her to speak at a housing conference. Aisha stood at the podium, lights in her eyes. She didn't read from notes. She said, I didn't ask to become a case study. I asked to stay in my home. The room was quiet. And I learned that justice doesn't arrive because someone deserves it. It arrives because someone refuses to disappear. Applause followed. Aisha felt uncomfortable, but also heard. That evening, she sat on the balcony again. Naomi beside her. Malik asleep inside. The city lights reflected in the windows of other buildings. Other families, other stories, other quiet battles. Naomi asked, "Do you think it'll ever be fair?" Aisha looked at the skyline. "No," she said honestly. "But I think it can be less cruel." Naomi smiled slightly. Aisha rested her head back. She hadn't won. She had survived. And survival, she had learned, was its own kind of resistance.